Good morning.
Good morning, Your Majesty. May I present with me today the artist Miriam Escofet, and by video link from India, Sanjibita McDonald-Terrian, and by video from France, Alethea Bly Flower. Welcome back to the Foreign Office, Your Majesty. And there is a particularly strong bond between the Sovereign and the Foreign Office, because we are Your Majesty's diplomatic service. And we have worked very closely with you, ma'am, throughout your reign on over 100 outward state visits and 111 inward state visits. But we're gathered here today for a unique event to have, we think, the first ever unveiling of a royal portrait by remote control. And now, with Your Majesty's permission, Miriam and I will unveil her picture of Your Majesty.
Very well. That's very good. Just because the last time I saw you, you said it was going to take you some time to finish.
I did, yes, and it did. I have quite a slow painting technique. I use a lot of glazes and a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's just been an absolute pleasure to work on this.
Well, I'm glad to have had a chance to see it. Hope I'll see it in real life one day.
Ma'am, we would like to brief you about what the Foreign and Commonwealth has been doing in the national effort to counter COVID-19. This has involved the whole of the Foreign Office at home and overseas. Normally, ma'am, in this building, there are 2,500 people, and 900 of them shifted to COVID-19 work on many different aspects. The single biggest aspect was the repatriation of British nationals from overseas. In the end, a total of 1.3 million people were helped home, and 38,000 of them came on special charter flights. The single biggest element was the effort in India, where we organized 66 charter flights. And we have on the line Sanjibita in Kolkata, and she was central to that effort. So now I will hand over to Sanjibita to tell her story.
I'm hugely honored and privileged to have this opportunity to tell you about the India COVID work on behalf of all my colleagues. So my role during the COVID was to manage the consular response for East and Northeastern India. And basically it was to plan the individual repatriation journeys, because the area that we covered was huge. It took minimum 2 days to travel by road, and also to liaise with the government authorities, manage issues which were being faced in the state borders because of the checkpost, and also managing the airport access for smooth transition for our nationals.
Because I mean, a lot of people go to India to visit.
Yes. In fact, on the 66 flights, we helped repatriate around 18,000 British travelers back to UK during the COVID response. So yes, we do have a big British community traveling and visiting India.
It is a lot, isn't it? Yes.
Your Majesty, with your permission, I would like to share one of the longest journey of our repatriation, which we dealt with in India. This was a young British national who was stranded in a very remote village in Nongman in Manipur, which is in the northeastern part of India. And she was vulnerable because she was very young. All her essentials were running out. And the entire India was on a nationwide lockdown. We had a complete lockdown for 67 days. So it was a very, very difficult situation. And then, with our local use of local contacts, I managed to persuade the superintendent of police in Ukrul, who then kindly understood our problem and then organized his own car to then, help a British national travel right from Nongman village to Manipur, Imphal, and then to Guwahati, where there was another car waiting to take her then from there to Delhi. A real satisfaction to see when she arrived Delhi safely to be able to take her flight.
Well, that must have been very wonderful for you to have achieved that.
Absolutely, Your Majesty.
Thank you, Sanjibita. So Your Majesty, Sanjibita clearly was at the heart of the effort to get citizens back home, but there were many other elements besides, including procurement for personal protective equipment, and also vaccinations, and also help for the most vulnerable countries. And so Alethea will now talk about that. Over to you, Alethea.
I'm the head of vaccines and global health in the FCO, in the COVID directorate. And I've been working for the last 4 months, mainly to get the right information to the right people at the right time. So working very closely with our embassies and with other colleagues around Whitehall and in other government departments to make sure people had the right information to make very quick decisions to help support the UK fight the COVID pandemic. And I think one of the proudest moments of my time in the last 4 months, working with my team and other colleagues on the Global Vaccine Summit, which the UK hosted.
Of course,
And yes, you may remember it. It was the first virtual summit we had ever hosted.
How lucky we have the technology to do this nowadays.
It is fantastic. There was a moment at the very beginning of the summit where the presenter started speaking and there was no sound. So everybody spent 5 seconds terrified that this wouldn't work, but fortunately, everything sorted itself out and the technology did work. And so we were able to proceed. And I think the summit lasted over 4 or 5 hours. So it was quite exceptional.
I'm sure, yes. This is an awful lot of things to be gathered, like the protection too for people, isn't it?
That's right. It was a huge effort. And again, FCO working very closely with our overseas embassies, who worked incredibly hard, and with other colleagues around government to make sure we were getting the right equipment. But I think we brought in over 16.8 million items of personal protective equipment for our frontline workers here in the UK who are, fighting the virus here for us. So it was quite something. And of course, we had to do it very quickly. So it was a real testament to our colleagues around the world who work very quickly and effectively to get that job done.
Well, I've always thought it was amazing how quickly your colleagues can adapt to doing something completely different to what they're supposed to be doing.
Yes. And I mean, I think I remember going home and leaving the office in early March. And within 2 weeks, I think, like Simon said, 900 people were doing completely different jobs from their kitchen tables, no longer going into the office. So it was really quite something to be part of.
Indeed. It's because everybody in the FCO has been doing the most incredible work. I must say, I'm very impressed to hear about it.
Well, ma'am, if I may say, that was exactly the impression we wanted to leave you with. So thank you for that assessment.
Well, that's very glad. Well, I'm glad to have been able to do this morning. Very nice to see everybody and very impressed.